Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I wanted to share with you one of the episodes that I was a guest on for someone else's podcast. I always talk about how important it is to build a media company. One of the next best things you could do is be on somebody else's media company. So I had the pleasure of being a guest on this podcast, and I wanted to share a little snippet with you because it would help support the 8 business pillars we've really been trying to focus on with a lot more of our content and a lot more of the solo episodes that I'm doing. So make sure, of course, that you subscribe to our podcast, but of course you take some time out, check out the show notes and subscribe to the podcast that I've been featured on as well too, and get to learn about some of those 8 business pillars and how you can continue to kind of leverage and build that up so you can go from builder to architect to, of course, rock star and luminary. So this is Gresh signing out. I hope you enjoy this I Am CEO special episode.
Today we have Gresham Harkless Jr., and he is the founder of Blue 16 Media and CB Nation. Blue 16 Media uses media and technology to change lives, which we are all about. These media properties include B16 Marketing, which is a digital marketing agency, which provides digital marketing services like web design, website support, SEO, all the SEO services. And CB Nation consists of media properties like blogs, podcasts, and videos, helping the business community succeed. Central to B16's marketing philosophy is that you are a media company. I love that. And that every organization is in the media business and can strategically leverage, two of my favorite words, marketing tools, platforms, and ingredients to reach their goals. Welcome to the show, Gresham.
Excited to be here. Thanks, Lynn and Amanda.
Oh, we're super excited. We love talking anything strategy and everything leveraging. And, it's funny that you're talking about SEO because I recently have had a couple of discussions with clients about SEO and website stuff and how it's changed and how nobody really knows what they're doing, basically. So I'm excited that you're here today.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Time is everything, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a hot topic in our Badass Amplifier. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit of what got you started and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of what I do, I always say I jump in my time machine and I go back to when I was 10 years old. And that whole philosophy about you are a media company, being a media company, actually the seeds were planted there. So my dad was in the military. I know we talked a little bit about it before we hopped on. So before we had all these fancy tools that we can instantly connect with people in different countries, different cities and states and all that stuff, my dad was going to a different country because he was in the military. So he got reassigned for a year and I boohooed like a baby because that was my partner who I love to spend all my time with, play basketball, do all the things. And he was stationed for a year in the United Arab Emirates. So when we took him to the airport, I boohooed, cried on the way back and all around. But one of the things that came about from that was I started what became a family newspaper. And I did it for about 2 years. My mom kept all of them, which was super awesome for me to kind of go back because I got to see all the things I used to cover that were happening in our family. So I would find out, I would tell a story about a squirrel that got into my grandma's house, or I would cover different sports events and all those things. And what I would do is we would create this care package. And when we put my dad's favorites like honey buns and all the sweets and all the things, and I would also put those newspapers in there and we would send them to my dad. So we'd find out everything that was going on in our family. And because who knows what I needed money for at that time, but at 10, I also sold some of the subscriptions to family members. So I usually say that that's kind of the start of what I feel like was my media company mindset, so to speak. And a lot of it was because I started to not understand what I wanted to be when I grew up. And as I was graduating from college and the world was just crazy with the economic crisis, layoffs, and all these things happening, I started to look back at some of the things I thought were kind of my things, unique stories I didn't hear all the time. And that's something that came up. So I said, if anything that I'm going to do, I'm always going to put it through that filter of would 10-year-old Gresh approve of this? And if that's the case, then I'm going to pursue it. So that's what led me down the line of all the things that I'm doing now.
That is such a cute story. Oh, that is an adorable story. I love that I love that was sort of your pre-beginning to everything. So when you were switching over from sort of unknowing what you're going to do, what really started that shift in towards what is considered now the more traditional digital marketing SEO world?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it happens sometimes when you aren't sure of, like we were even talking about SEO, like not sure what to do. Sometimes you come across the right people or the right situations and it leads you in that direction. But I've always been kind of interested in, like, I always say I was tech geek and interested in kind of websites, building things. I built a computer when I was in high school, things like that. But what kind of led me to that was I started to quote unquote study those things without knowing those things were any of any value. So I got laid off from, in the midst of a couple of years, got laid off from a job. I was going to get laid off from another job, but it was an outside sales job. So I was cold calling somebody so that they would buy advertising for the company that I worked for. So I talked to him. My way to get in the door was saying, hey, your website's not really set up. You should do this, not thinking these things are of any value at all, honestly. So I sit down with him, have a conversation with him, ask him, of course, if he wants to buy advertising. He, of course, doesn't want to buy advertising, but he gives me kind of an endorsement and wants to be one of my first clients at the time for the SEO. And so I'm able to kind of work into that. So I wouldn't say that I was aware of it. I would say that it was kind of brought to me as something of value. I didn't see it of value until I met him. I went to a networking event, met other people that were like, "Oh, you know about this thing," and it just started to kind of snowball from there. So I wish I could say that I was the smartest person in the room, but I just kind of was following whatever that magnet was leading me.
I, I love that for several reasons. First of all, we don't have to be the smartest person in the room. And it drives me crazy when people are saying that we do have to be, and actually, you don't. You just have to be clever and be open. And I love that maybe you weren't looking for it, but you were open to the opportunity, and you uncovered it because you were giving, right? And Amanda and I are big advocates of like give to receive. And you are actually navigating, and we love sales. I mean, we wrote a whole book on it, but you were giving to be able to like navigate. And maybe you were doing that to get the sale, but it sounds like, and reading your bio and reading about you, that it comes natural for you. And that really opened up the door. And then you're like, ooh, maybe this is bigger.
Yeah, I would definitely, echo that. You're absolutely right because I think that I didn't really know what it was going to be, but I knew this is my superpower, so to speak. This is something I'm passionate about. This is something I could do to help, and then hopefully, things will come out from there. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I did know that I probably wanted to start a business at some point. Don't necessarily think I had the confidence, I think probably is the right word, but I think that as those things start to happen, I just started to try to help people out in whatever way I could, whatever talents or gifts or even things that I feel like I had experienced or known, and then just try to share that along the way.
Well, I think 10-year-old Gresh would just not agree with you if you were already selling your newsletters at 10 years old. Like that's incredible. I love that. That's like that young
That's so cute.
entrepreneurial. I
Yeah,
love that. And I do want to bring it back to that because I was literally in a talk yesterday that I did for a Rotary Club. I was talking about like handwritten and like writing out like different things. I send postcards to all the little kids and in my kind of like girlfriends, families and stuff all across the world. And like
nice.
how beautiful that was because I lived overseas as well. And like we would send family letters back home, even though internet was a thing at that point, but still like to be able to get that handwritten or that even like printed one about like this is everything that's happening. So it looks like you definitely have that creativeness and then the entrepreneurial spirit and cleverness way before you even understood it. Now that you can bring it back to that point in time, that's really fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it's probably a little bit naivete. Like you didn't even know, you're just doing it. When you're younger, you're just doing things. You don't think about, oh, I want to make a lot of money or I want to be successful or I want to go, viral or any of those things. You're just doing things from a passion standpoint.
But I think that's one of the things I love about the entrepreneurial spirit at its core is that you do just kind of you do the thing. You don't get afraid of it. You don't question yourself so much. You just decide like, I'm going to do this. And then you do it. And that's, what little Gresh was doing.
Yes.
That's right. So you are all about blogs and podcasts and videos, and you really leverage technology. So if somebody's coming to you, like where do you start with them? Like what's kind of your process?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything starts from a conversation. I think so many times that I talk a lot around building a media company, and I usually compare that to going to the grocery store to cook your favorite dish. And I'd say a lot of times people go to the grocery store, they go hungry, they're dropping everything into their cart, they're dropping all the ingredients, all the things, they all look good, they all sound right, but they aren't necessarily essential to like what you're trying to build. So a lot of what I try to do, during that first conversation is just trying to understand what and where people are trying to go. I usually say like there's three main questions. I usually try to kind of get as much information as possible. And those are ongoing questions, which are around their goals. Like, what does success look like? Does it mean selling more books? Does it mean selling t-shirts? Do you want to have more speaking engagements? All those things I think will tailor how you execute on your strategy. The next is like who you're targeting, who are you actually, providing value for, solutions for, and helping. And then the next is honestly just your resources, which usually can mean time or money. So when I'm trying to have that first initial conversation, I'm usually trying to get as much information around those things because I believe that, and I call all of these marketing tools and all these things that we have out there ingredients. I believe if you get clear on those questions, when you're trying to figure out what the ingredients are for the thing, the recipe or the dish that you're trying to make, you're going to be able to make sure that you're getting the ones that help support that. And I think a lot of times people don't necessarily go to it from that. They hear the new fad, then they hear the new thing that they need to be doing rather than saying, okay, this is where I want to go. So will this support me in terms of getting there?
Yeah, it's all about strategy. I mean, it really is. You have to get clear on what your goal is, and you have to really put those strategical steps in place. Otherwise, you're all over the place and you're just putting eggs in every bucket that you see. You're putting some eggs in a drawer. There's some eggs over there next door. Like, you've got to really focus in on what you're trying to achieve and then go all into that thing and really strategize around it. Otherwise, you're going to be all over the place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I also love that. And it's interesting because Amanda and I talk about this a lot, but I'm starting to feel like, because we look younger than probably what we are, but there's some basics that will not zip it.
I don't know about that. I feel 40s.
I feel like we were in high school together.
Yeah, there's some basics that never go away. And I love that. And especially with you being on the digital side, marketing and SEO and all this other stuff, because you hear a lot of people in that world, like bright, shiny object. Oh, we can get you 1 million overnight, blah, blah, blah. And you're like bringing it back to the basics and the actual foundational structure that every business should be built upon for sustainability, for scalability, for really to survivability at this point. And because otherwise it can be a success overnight, but it's not going to be long term, right? You're selling an empty egg, a shell of an egg. And I love that you bring it back to that. How is that navigating that with your new people? Because they're probably not used to hearing those questions. They just want to hear like, what you going to give me?
It is extremely difficult. And I think it's extremely difficult a lot of times because there's so much misinformation out there. And even people that are using, I guess, I don't know if I want to even call it salesmanship, but a lot of times because we know that people want things yesterday. A lot of times, if you make those promises, make those proclamations, then that's going to attract people. But I just try to, kind of march to a different drum and beat and not be true to those things. But it can be sometimes difficult, but that's where a lot of times you start to attract the right people that will support those things. And I'm very transparent about SEO. Like, and when you're picking all the ingredients, each of them have pros and cons. And I'm really aware and I try to speak to the fact that SEO is generally speaking a long-term marketing strategy. If you think that you're going to get on page one on day one, then you've been promised something that isn't probably going to happen. Of course, there's so many different considerations. If you're ranking page number 2, then of course you can help improve that. But generally speaking, if you understand that it's a long-term marketing strategy, it's going to attract the right people. And that's one of the reasons that I talk a lot around SEO, because I've started to find over the years, over 10 years of doing this, that if I talk about long-term strategy, it will probably remove people that aren't interested in that and want that quick fix. And sometimes that helps me to attract the people that are actually going to be the right people that we can serve.
Yeah, it's like stock market theory. So it's like when you're talking to a financial advisor, you think, okay, well, this is your stock market stuff. This is the stuff that you're investing in, but it's not going to pay off until for a while, because I've had some clients who literally we go over like a basic, very basic social media or SEO platform. And then they're like a week later, like, well, how come I'm not ranked yet? And I'm like, well, it's been like 5 days. Like, give it a minute. But yes, it's understanding where your, how long things are going to take. It really is an important concept.
Yeah, I do love that. We used to call it repelling, right? So when you're actually speaking in truly who you are, what you represent in your purpose, and being really clear about that, you'll actually repel those that are not your clients, which will save you so much time and energy and headache much later on down the road. So I love that. Tell us a little bit more about your CEO hack. Is that
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the really cool things I get to do by doing, my podcast is I always have awesome guests on the show, and we usually have kind of set conversations around different things that they're doing, their business. We'll let them get started, those awesome things. But one of the most exciting things for me is I ask everybody on the show for what I call CEO hacks, and these are kind of apps, books, habits, software tools, things that you can lean on to be more effective and efficient. And the things that I absolutely love about them is that we often think that they have to be the quote unquote biggest thing in the world. They have to be the grandest new software. But there's so many people that have talked around things like morning routines and how impactful they've been in terms of setting up your day, or even just doing internal work and knowing like where and how you work best. And those things that really kind of propel, you and your organization forward. I lean on things like Basecamp for project management. We were talking a little bit around scheduling. I use Acuity, which I send people that want to set up time. Those things end up saving so much time that it allows you to be more present in your superpower and the things that you do. So I've compiled a bunch of them, have hundreds of them that are over on our site. But one of the things that I love about them is that they're I feel like, again, just like the ingredients, you figure out what you're doing, where you're trying to go. You pick those ingredients, those CEO hacks that can support you, that can maybe save you time so you can spend more time in your zone of genius doing the things that the technology or the habits or things like that don't do as well. So it allows you to be, I think, more human, more present, and I think ultimately make even bigger impact.
Yes, I love that. I love you're saying your zone of genius. That's exactly right. You want to play to your strengths and let either another person delegate anywhere you can, automate, whatever you can do to push those other things off on to somebody who's more qualified, can get it done better than you because you do have a specific zone of genius.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny enough. I was going through this book called Who Not How. And it talks a lot around that. And I think it really is, I'm going through the exercise now, but so many times when we have problems, we think about like, how are we going to solve that problem? But if we start to change that, especially from an entrepreneurial standpoint, and you can do this in your business, you can do this in your life, like stop thinking about like how you're going to solve it. Start thinking about who you could potentially lean on to help solve that problem. Because if I think the quote is, you stand on the shoulders of the giants, you can see so much further. If you have those giants that have those experiences, have that knowledge, that's in their superpower, that allows you to accelerate, I think, your growth, but also the opportunity to really be able to make the impact in the way that you ultimately see.
Absolutely. I have lots of quotes around that. One of my favorites is the African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I love that. And I know that you are very like, you believe in community, because I see in your bio and on your website, like you're in all kinds of associations and clubs and different things, including BNI, where Amanda and I first met. I was ambassador, a director for 10 years. So I love BNI, but yeah, talk a little bit about like a little bit more about like community and how community can support you in your entrepreneurship, in your marketing, in every facet that you have your hands in.
Yeah, I mean, I think community is huge. I think we're made to be in community in some different form, shape, or fashion. I think during the pandemic, I won't say it. I think some people think it negatively affected. I think it evolved the way that we communicate, and we do it in different ways. But funny enough, like with that cold call that I made that I was talking about when I got started, that cold call was to a BNI member who actually introduced me to BNI, which is where I started my business. So I love BNI as well too. And like I'll say this, like so many times, I think we get into the nuts and bolts of business, which is of course important. You want to make sure you have your P&L and your SEOs and all those things in place. But what really helped me, and when I talked about that confidence piece, within my business was actually being in a BNI chapter because I didn't necessarily have that environment that was supporting me to start a business, but BNI allowed me on a weekly basis to be able to do that. And I can't say enough about the impact that it has. So it speaks directly to the community. I think so many times when we don't have the confidence, we don't know what we want to do, or we have like really ambitious goals or things that we want to focus on, we can go so much further if we go together rather than by ourselves. And I think community speaks directly to that. So I think if there's something that, someone might want to achieve, they may feel a little doubt, may not be aware if they can do that. Find a community, tap into that community, because you start acting, you start doing the things without, you have that naivete that I had when I was 10, that I still sometimes have now, because you're in the environment of people that are doing certain things that you want to do. And I think that's the power of community. It just brings people together. When you have a bad day, somebody else is having a great day. When you have a great day, somebody else is having a bad day. So you start to go through things together, and it helps you get, I think, closer to at least the goal that you want to have.
Well, and I love that because a lot of people won't make this correlation, but marketing really is about people dynamics. I mean, it is about like the numbers and kind of like the navigating and stuff, but really if you actually boil it down to the human side, we're looking for some kind of connection to feel a part of something. And I know that you do more than marketing, you have all the other stuff with SEO and stuff like that, but to me that adds in addition to everything else that you're doing. And I love that. I love that you represent that. And I know you have a global team as well, as Amanda and I do, and that it's something that's a core, I would assume a core value from what I've read and understood of yours. And we love that.
Yeah, it's huge. I always say we forget about the people aspect of business, and we forget about the people aspect of life. And that's really we talk about SEO, like even if we go into the nitty gritty of SEO, all it is really trying to understand how people are searching, and the data, the analytics, all those things reflect that. But it's at the core, like what people are. So I think that understanding, and that's why I said that's one of my core questions: who are you targeting? You understand them and you continue to understand them. That's going to direct as SEO changes, as platform changes, as life changes. You start to be kind of with your North Star to the people that you're trying to serve. And it's huge, but it's often overlooked.
So I want to go back, and I know we skewed away from this for a second, but I want to go back to this I Am CEO handbook that you've got going on. I know you're actually going to be offering it to our audience for free, which is awesome. Thank you so much. But tell us a little bit more about how that got started, and maybe even one or two of your favorite CEO nuggets.
Yeah, so I love this because a lot of it in the very beginning, my uncle actually passed away while I was like literally constructing this. So I completed over 1,600 episodes of my podcast, and I took a step away so that I could repurpose episodes for the year. But I wanted to really start to drill down and see like what things have I learned, because I started to hear things consistently over and over again about how people are able to be successful and how they're able to leverage those things. So what I started to do was to compile a lot of the lessons that I've learned, the 100+ nuggets and information, a lot of the hacks that I kind of talked about as well too, into this ebook, so that people can kind of learn a little bit more on how to get further along, and rather than trying to go it alone, just from a community standpoint, to get to do it together by learning from other people. So the very beginning of the book talks a lot around my uncle, and he was the ultimate entrepreneur. I feel like we're very connected. So I talk a story about him and how he influenced me, and just still influences me to this day. But I really try to bring it home to give tactical information on how people can kind of leverage their business. And I have certain pillars. I have about 16 pillars or so of things that I feel like people should really focus on when they're trying to quote unquote level up within their organization. So one of my favorites is that in order to kind of go further along, sometimes we have to pause. And I think that was one of the things that I literally went through to create the book, is actually taking time away to actually come back and be a lot more effective and efficient. I think when we talk a lot around, and I was this person, and I've been transforming myself and trying to work on myself as far as like grind, go, nonstop, and how that it can be so detrimental because we don't take time to really look at things. We don't take time to really ask ourselves where we're trying to go, where success is, and what that looks like. And I think by being able and kind of having that as a strong pillar, it's very impactful to help people to continue to make sure they're going where they want to go, but also making sure that the tactics, the tools, the analytics, whatever you're looking at to measure that success is happening. So I think that's one of the big things I touched on too, like, not forgetting the people part of business. I think that that's something that you see in marketing, as we talked about. You see it in HR, you see it in finance, you see it all throughout the business. And I think if we don't remember why we're doing the things that we're doing, ultimately, like, why are we ultimately doing them? And I think to ask those questions and to be tied into that is very, impactful. So these are just some of the pillars that, I'm sharing in the ebook that you can find there. But there's hundreds of hacks, there's hundreds of nuggets. And again, just try to approach it just like you're in that grocery store and pick and choose the things that are going to help you to get to where you need to be.
I'm really excited about it because there's always something else we can learn from someone else. You talk about being the smartest person in the room. I hate when I'm the smartest person in the room. There's always something else somebody can contribute, and you might not be, maybe you're the smartest at underwater basket weaving, but you really want to learn about carrots. I don't know. Whatever example I'm giving.
We're back into underwater basket weaving.
It's my thing. I don't know why I say it. However, it doesn't matter what your specialty is, what your zone of genius is, there's something you can learn from that. And so really having that collection of things is going to be great. So make sure you're checking out our show notes and looking for that link for the CEO hacks and nuggets.
Absolutely. And I do want to add to that, though, what you said, and Gresh, what you were saying earlier is if you think you're the smartest person in the room, then you're already you're so many steps behind because you're not open to actually expanding. It's kind of like when you believe like you're the master at something. This is a personal opinion. When you believe you're a master at something, then you actually stop learning. And to me, you start dying. And it's like, if you don't have that hunger anymore. And I love that one, you compiled the list of all these different things that will help you. And it seems like choose your own destiny kind of thing, which we love. We love those kind of books. That's the way we wrote our books, is like, you can just pick it up and read from anywhere and kind of pick and choose. And if you come to it in different parts, on different days at different parts of your life and cycle, you're going to get something different out of it. It's kind of like reading a book twice or three times, or listening to a song, because some of us don't read, listening to a song and then hearing it like during a breakup, and then when you're happy, you're going to get different things out of it. So I love that.
Yeah, and that's so powerful to be able to do that, where you can read the exact same thing and it hits you somewhat differently. And I think that's the beauty, of all these things, is that hopefully I can compile enough information that can help people to kind of get further along than where they are.
I love that. Before we ask you our last question, I do want to ask, what would your 10-year-old Gresh say to you now?
I think he would be, he'd be excited about some of the things that I've been able to do. I'd never been asked that question, never really thought about it, but I hope he would be excited. I think I've rolled up my sleeves and done a lot of, I think hard work, just in the things that I do, but just probably on myself more than anything else. So I think that you always hear that quote of like, you never forget that sometimes the things that you have in life, you prayed for at one point in life. And I feel like I'm a testament to that, of things that I wish for and I hope for, prayed for, and them to come to fruition. I kind of have to remind myself of that, because I think when you're kind of on the go and always want to go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, you can lose that gratitude. But I think that ultimately 10-year-old Gresh would say, hey, you're doing pretty good. Give yourself a pat on the back and yeah, keep going.
Good. And what would you say to your 10-year-old self if you could?
Thanks for writing that newspaper. Thanks for doing those things. And I think that if it was me talking to my 10-year-old self, I would say, hey, how can I tap into a little bit more of that naivete? How can I tap into a little bit more of that creativity and trying and let's hop on a podcast, and so I could pick your brain a little bit and learn a little bit more on how I could do that.
Time machine coming in handy, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, you could upgrade your newsletter to actual podcast or something. Who knows?
That's awesome.
So if you could leave the audience with one last tidbit of things they need to think about in their SEO website world, what would it be?
I think one of my favorite quotes that I always go back, and this pertains to marketing, but also to life and business and everything, is don't tell me the sky's the limit when there's footprints on the moon. And I think there's so many times I listened to so many motivational things when I was getting started and talking about the community, of course, being around people. But now we have podcasts, books, blogs, videos that we can kind of lean on to create that environment. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me is that there was things that we're using right now that people laughed at and didn't think were possible. So when you have that dream, that aspiration, that goal, that invention, whatever it is, don't let people tell you that it's not possible. It might be hard, it might take a lot of time, but don't feel like it's not possible, because I truly believe that even if you don't get to quote unquote the goal, whatever that is, just the pursuit of it, just the journey towards it is sometimes the gift in and of itself. So just continue to kind of chase those dreams, chase the things that you want to have, and yeah, make it a phenomenal day.
I've never heard that quote, but it's now my new favorite.
There you go.
I'm going to have to put that somewhere, something. Don't tell me sky's the limit. There are footsteps on the moon. New favorite. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
So how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a hub of everything, lots of different links, lots of different sites, but you can go to iamgresh.com. That has links to everything, the Blue 16 part, the podcast, the handbook, all those different things you can access there.
Love it. By the way, I do love progression.
Thank you.
Love it. We
English
love
major in
little
me.
plays on words and clever.
Yes.
We love clever. We think we're clever ourselves. So thank you so much, Gresh. This was amazing. I feel like we can talk to you forever. There are so many little nuggets that we could have in valleys we could have went down with you. And so I'm sure we'll be talking to you again in the future. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn and Amanda.
Hello. This is Gresh again, and I hope you enjoyed that special episode of the I Am CEO podcast. Just like I mentioned in the beginning, we're really trying to laser focus on these 8 pillars to show you as a builder how you can leverage these 8 pillars and really level up there, so it helps to level up your business and organization. So hope you enjoyed this episode, and definitely please check out the show notes so you can learn more about the pillar, learn more about the person that I guested on their episode, and of course learn more a little bit more about us as well too. This is Gresh signing out. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.